Good morning, everyone. Topic of today is thermal protection part 1. So basically, what do we understand by the term thermal protection? So as we all know that the babies, newborn babies, they are more prone to develop hypothermia because they have poor heat regulating mechanisms. So these newborn babies, they are more susceptible to develop hypothermia because of the poor heat regulating mechanisms, and the fetal temperature is zero point 0.5 degrees centigrade higher than the maternal temperature during the intrauterine life. So during this life the temperature of the fetus is zero point 0.5 degrees centigrades higher than the maternal temperature, and this temperature is high due to metabolic reactions. So the metabolic reactions which take place, they generate the heat. And this is the reason that during the intrauterine life, the fetal temperature is higher than the maternal temperature. So after the birth, immediately after the birth, the infant is exposed to the outside environment where there is lower temperature. So the newborn babies, they are more prone to develop hypothermia. Now we will discuss sources of the heat loss. So heat loss in a newborn occurs through four ways. First way is radiation. Radiation to the surrounding environment, which is not in direct contact with the baby. Second source, convection. Convection to the air flowing in the surrounding. Then third source, conduction. Conduction to the substances which are in direct contact with the baby. And fourth source is evaporation. Evaporation of the amniotic fluid and moisture from the baby's skin to the atmosphere. So these are the four sources of the heat loss, or we can say heat loss in the newborn babies. It occurs through four ways: radiation, convection, conduction, and evaporation. Now, as we have discussed that newborn babies, they are more prone to develop hypothermia. Now the question arises, why? Why are the newborn babies more prone or more susceptible to develop hypothermia? So this we will discuss in detail, that newborn babies are more susceptible to develop hypothermia because of these following reasons. First is large surface area of the babies compared to their weight. The head constitutes a significant portion of the newborn surface area and can be a source of great heat loss. So, the babies have larger surface area as compared to their body weight. And the greatest source of the heat loss is the head. That's why we have discussed in the care of the newborn that we should well clothe the baby. We should cover the head of the baby with the cap. The baby should must wear cap, because the reason is the head constitutes the major portion of the surface area, and head is the greatest source of the heat loss. Then newborn babies are more prone to hypothermia because of the limited heat generating mechanisms, limited sources of the heat generation. Then vulnerability of getting exposed, dependent on others for early detection and rectification. So the newborn babies, they are more prone to develop hypothermia. They are more susceptible to develop hypothermia because of the larger surface area of the babies as compared to their weight. Then they have limited heat generating mechanisms. Then they are more vulnerable of getting exposed. They are dependent on the others, on the healthcare workers, family members for early detection and rectification. Now we will discuss about the additional factors that can contribute to heat loss in the LBW, low birth weight babies. And these additional factors, these include poor insulation due to lower subcutaneous fat, decreased brown fat stores, more permeable skin, larger surface area than the term babies, poor physiological response to hypothermia, and early exhaustion of the metabolic stores like glucose. Now here we are discussing about the additional factors. Before that, we have discussed that why are the newborns more prone to develop hypothermia. Here we are discussing about the additional factors that contribute to the loss of heat in the low birth weight babies and in the preterm babies. And these factors are decreased amount of the brown fat stores, more permeable skin, poor insulation, then larger surface area. The preterm babies and the low birth weight babies, they have larger surface area as compared to the babies who are born at term. Now, term born babies are who are born at completed 37 weeks of the gestation. So the preterm babies, they have larger surface area than the term babies. That's why they are more prone to develop hypothermia. Then the low birth weight babies or the preterm babies, they have poor response to hypothermia, and in them there is early exhaustion of the metabolic stores like glucose. Now then we will discuss about the sources of the heat production. Till now we had discussed sources of the heat loss and why newborns are more prone to develop hypothermia. Now we are discussing sources of the heat production. So when the newborn is exposed to any cold environment or wet environment, he tries to generate heat. And how he will generate heat? He will generate heat by increased physical activity. And that physical activity could be excessive crying or increased body movements or by mounting a sympathetic surge. Now, all these physical activity, this will cause vasoconstriction and non-shivering thermogenesis in the brown fat. Now the question arises, what is brown fat? So basically brown fat is a collection of the fat. It's a highly vascularized collection of the fat, and this brown fat is specially located in the axilla or in the perirenal area, in the nape of the neck, in interscapular area. So when the blood passes through this brown fat, that blood gets heated up and keeps the baby warm. Now, this brown fat stores, it is scanty in the preterm babies and the low birth weight babies. Or we can say that the preterm babies or the small for gestational age babies, they have scanty brown fat stores. That's why they are more prone to develop hypothermia, because when the blood passes through this brown fat, that blood gets heated up and keeps the baby warm. Now, blood passing through brown fat gets heated up to keep baby warm, and the preterm babies and small for gestational age babies, they have scanty brown fat stores. Now, hyperthermia. Now, what is hyperthermia? Hyperthermia is an immature thermoregulating mechanism and decreased ability to sweat predisposes newborn to hyperthermia. Now, hyperthermia is when there is decreased ability to sweat and an immature thermoregulating mechanism. Both these factors predisposes the newborn to develop hyperthermia. Now, many factors like overclothing the baby or higher environmental temperature in summers or poor feeding and dehydration, these are the common factors that can lead to hyperthermia. Many a times we have seen that the mother makes the child wear many clothes. So factors like overclothing, when the child has worn many clothes, he has worn inner also, then t-shirt, then jacket. So factors like overclothing the baby, or when the temperature is very high, when the environmental temperature is very high, especially in the summers, or when the baby is not feeding properly, or dehydration. All these factors, they can lead to hypothermia. Then the normal body temperature. So the normal body temperature is 36.5 to 37.5 degree centigrade. This is the normal body temperature. Then hypothermia is when the auxiliary temperature is less than 36.5 degree centigrade. Now here we are talking about the normal body temperature. that we all know, that is 36.5 degree centigrade to 37.5 degree centigrade. Then hypothermia, it is the auxiliary temperature which is less than 36.5 degree centigrade. Then comes cold stress, when the temperature is between 36.0 to 36.4 degree centigrade. That comes under the category of cold stress, when temperature ranges between 36.0 to 36.4 degree centigrade. Then moderate hypothermia, when the temperature lies between 32 to 35.9 degree centigrade. Then we call it moderate hypothermia. Then severe hypothermia, when the temperature is less than 32 degree centigrade. That is severe hypothermia. And hyperthermia is auxiliary temperature more than 37.5 degree centigrade. So it is very easy to remember that normal body temperature is 36.5 to 37.5 degrees centigrade. Then hypothermia is when the auxiliary temperature is less than 36.5 degrees centigrade. Hyperthermia is when the auxiliary temperature is more than 37.5 degrees centigrade. In between comes cold stress, moderate hypothermia and severe hypothermia. So cold stress is 36.0 to 36.4 degrees centigrade. Moderate hypothermia is 32 से लेके 35.9 degree centigrade, and severe hypothermia is less than 32 degree centigrade is severe hypothermia. Now, methods of temperature measurement. So, the thermometer for measuring temperature in the neonates should have low reading value till 30 degree centigrade, so that degree of severe hypothermia can be accurately assessed, because what we have discussed that severe hypothermia is less than 32 degree centigrade. So when we are measuring the temperature of the neonate, we should keep in mind that the thermometer we are using for measuring temperature, that should have a low reading value, or we can say we have to purchase low reading value thermometer in which value is still 30 degree centigrade, so that we can accurately assess the degree of severe hypothermia. Now here we are discussing the methods of temperature measurement. So before measuring the temperature, we have to keep in mind that we have to use the thermometer which has low reading value till 30 degrees centigrade, so that we can accurately assess the degree of severe hypothermia. Now basically there are three methods of temperature measurement. First method is auxiliary method. In this method, what we do, the bulb of the thermometer, it is placed in the roof of the dry axilla for at least 3 minutes while holding the baby's arm close to the trunk. Now this is the kind of the intermittent measurement. It is not continuous measurement. We cannot measure the temperature continuously. We can measure temperature intermittently. So auxiliary method is, it's a intermittent measurement. And auxiliary method, it is the standard method of temperature recording. So in this method, what we do, the bulb of the thermometer is placed in the roof of the dry axilla for 3 minutes while holding the baby's arm close to the trunk. And it is a standard method of temperature measurement, and it is an intermittent measurement. The next method is, second method is skin probe. In skin probe method, the probe of the thermal sensor, it is placed on the skin over the upper abdomen, and the panel, there's a panel which displays the measured temperature. Now this is continuous monitoring. It is not intermittent measurement, it is continuous monitoring of the body temperature. So skin probe method, and it is very useful in regulating the heat output in the radiant warmers and the incubators, that we will discuss in the next lecture, what are radiant warmers and incubators. So basically skin probe method, it is very useful in regulating the amount of the heat output in the radiant warmers and the incubators. And the last method, third method is touch. So in this method, the back of the hand is used to measure the temperature. Now, the temperature is considered normal if the baby's abdomen, feet and hands are warm. Cold if the abdomen is warm but feet and hands are cold. And hypothermia if abdomen, feet and hands are cold. Now, what we do in this method, we can get a approximate or reasonable idea by touching the baby's hand and feet and abdomen by the back of the examiner's hand. If everything appears warm, hands, feet, and abdomen, if everything is warm, then the temperature of the baby is considered as normal. But when the abdomen is warm, but hands and feet are cold, this is the indication of hypothermia. But when the hands and feet are cold and abdomen is also cold, this is the indication of severe hypothermia. So touch method, it is also a intermittent measurement, but it's a crude method and it is very helpful for the mothers or the healthcare workers to quickly estimate the temperature of their baby. So this was the third method of temperature measurement, that is touch. Now, frequency of the measurement. How frequently we have to measure the temperature of the baby. So the frequency of the temperature measurement, it can be once daily for the healthy babies who are healthy and otherwise well. 2 to 3 times daily for healthy small babies. Healthy small babies means who have a birth weight between 2 to 2.5 kg. 4 times daily for very small babies. Very small babies mean who have a birth weight less than 2 kg. And we have to measure temperature every 2 hourly for the sick babies. Now here, the mother should be encouraged to assess the body temperature of the neonate by touching the baby. So this is the frequency of the temperature measurement. So temperature can be measured once daily for the healthy babies, 3 times daily for healthy small babies, then 4 times daily for very small babies, and every 2 hours for the sick babies. And we have to encourage the mother to monitor the body temperature, to assess the body temperature by touching the baby. Now next is disorders of the body temperature. Now there are only two disorders of the body temperature, either hypothermia or hyperthermia. Now hypothermia, it happens as a result of exposure to cold environment such as low ambient temperature, exposure to cold surface, exposure to cold air, or when the baby is wet or not clothed properly. So hypothermia and hyperthermia. Hypothermia, temperature is less than 36.5 degrees centigrade. Hyperthermia, temperature more than 37.5 degrees centigrade. So only there are two disorders of body temperature, hypothermia and hyperthermia. And hypothermia happens as a result of exposure to cold air, cold surface, cold environment, or when the baby is kept in the cold surface, baby is wet, or baby is not clothed properly. Hypothermia results when the infant is exposed to warm environment as in summers, or exposed directly to sun, direct sun exposure, or overheated in the incubators or the radiant warmers. Hypothermia as well as hyperthermia, they are the indication of any underlying serious illness. Thank you. In the next class, we will discuss about prevention of hypothermia, that is warm chain. Thank you.